Hey there, folks. Welcome to Head, Heart, and Hustle, the podcast for creatives. As always, I'm your host, Alan Plummer. Thanks for listening. Now, today we're going to talk about the New York Times op-ed that came out a little over a week ago about Uma Thurman. Take a look at it. If you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to do so. I actually included the link to that in the description for this episode, so go and find that, and you should be able to find a link to that there. You should also be able to find it on the New York Times website pretty easily. Now, when I read that op-ed from the New York Times about Uma Thurman probably a little over a week ago, and her complicated, horrible relationship with Harvey Weinstein and Quentin Tarantino, there were a couple things that really struck me. One, now, in addition to the ongoing disgust that I continue to feel regarding the Miramax co-founder, there was something else in that op-ed piece that I really felt the need to write about and actually share with you guys. Not only was Thurman raped, sexually assaulted, betrayed, and intimidated, but professionally, she was reduced to an artistic object in Tarantino's films. Rather than being given the ability to collaborate, partner, and contribute to films like Kill Bill, she was treated as merely a living, breathing object that existed only to create art. For proof, look no further than the video of the car wreck on the set of Kill Bill, which happened in February 2003. It accompanies the article, and again, if you go take a look, you can find the video there. In no way, shape, or form do I wish to demean or minimize the devastating events that Weinstein inflicted upon Thurman. But as I watched the video of that car crash, I realized that moment wasn't just about Weinstein. It was about her as a professional actor. As an artist who on that day had no control over their creative rights, talents, or boundaries. And that's a horrible disrespect no artist or creative individual should experience. Certainly not on top of the other horrors that she was dealing with. Similar examples of this type of treatment are everywhere, admittedly though, obviously, on a much smaller scale. Everyone who makes a living off their creative talents has stories of their own talents being disrespected or minimized. I personally had clients years ago who couldn't even make a complete sentence in an email with punctuation, yet tried to lecture me on the fact that I couldn't write. I've been stiffed on payments, I've been paid months late, and I've received checks for less than the agreed rate. Sometimes the issues were with individuals, sometimes they were with pretty large clients. And yeah, it's hard to stand up for yourself when you're a freelance writer struggling to make the rent, much less being able to afford an attorney and take matters into your own hands when necessary. More broadly, writers and designers and other creative individuals often joke and vent among colleagues and friends about clueless entrepreneurs who are seeking creatives who are willing to work for, quote, exposure, unquote. And look, exposure is just a slimy way of saying that these entrepreneurs don't want to pay for your talents, so the artist or the creative should consider the visibility of their work as payment in and of itself. It's a laughable concept, yet it persists among clueless and arrogant business people who fail to recognize what it takes to become a professional writer, designer, web builder, photographer, filmmaker, or any other type of talented profession. And quite frankly, it's pretty damn infuriating. If the thought of that concept makes you angry, then you ought to be outraged by Thurman's treatment at the hands of director Tarantino. Other details from the op-ed are nauseating, and you certainly don't need my fumbling recap of those details once you've read the piece itself. Such treatment from controlling auteurs such as Tarantino essentially sends a message that one's artistic contributions are null and non-existent. That rather than a creative contributor or partner, one is merely a journeyman, hired to execute some sort of creative task to the satisfaction of their boss, regardless of their own abilities and insights. Shut up, do the work, and go home is the subtext here, in my opinion. And to say it's demeaning would be an understatement. Now, I'll fully admit that as a Gen Xer, I embraced Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction when they came out in my early 20s. Tarantino's visual style and dialogue have impacted my own sense of voice and storytelling. At the time those films were released, they were fresh, new, and raw in a way that we had never seen, certainly not as children of the 80s, where everything was slick, polished, and over-engineered. In fact, today, I still find the dialogue in the diner scene of Pulp Fiction to be some of the smartest dialogue of the past few decades. Yet other areas of Tarantino's work hasn't aged as well, particularly his treatment of women, who must always survive some sort of abuse, attack, or physical violence in order to become a hero. It's unnecessary, and it says something about Tarantino's psyche that this trend exists. And don't even get me started on his shots of bare feet. Thurman's poise, intelligence, and professionalism have always impressed me, but even more so after reading the op-ed. Her story should serve as a sobering example for anyone who is a professional creative, as well as for those individuals such as myself who lead creative artists on a daily basis. The talented writers, designers, editors, photographers, illustrators, project managers, filmmakers, musicians, web designers, and other people you work with are professionals. Professionals who bring a wealth of experience, knowledge, and ideas to the workplace every single day. These people aren't steps in an assembly line. They aren't automatons who execute creative tasks mindlessly, and they're sure as hell not robots. So treat them like the talented individuals they are and embrace their contributions. If you do, your work and the morale of those people you work with will improve drastically. And more importantly, it's just the right thing to do. I'm Alan Plummer. Thanks again for listening. Now go create something.